If you're constantly making mistakes and can't seem to figure out what's going wrong, I'm going to be highlighting the 7 deadly sins of competitive Fortnite. Grab a notebook and make sure you watch this video all the way through so you don't miss out on anything. The first deadly sin is bad storm surge management. Being below on surge can catch you off guard and completely sell your game. Getting enough surge is incredibly important during high elo stacked lobbies. Even though surge tags are way more difficult this season since there's no hit scan, in stacked games, you and your teammate need to be actively pursuing tags to make sure you never get caught below surge. Storm surge will tick you and your teammate for 25 damage and continue to tick you both until you've come above the damage threshold or until enough players have died and storm surge disappears. After first zone, storm surge has a chance of popping as future zones close in. Surge will happen if there's 90 players up in second and third zone, 78 players up in fourth, 64 up in fifth, 54 up in sixth, 44 up in seventh, 40 up in eighth, and 30 up from 9th to 12th zone. The second deadly sin is overcommitting. The reason why your refresh attempts backfire and turn into getting yourself killed is because you constantly overcommit. In endgame, the element of surprise is your best friend. As a fragger, you need to understand that when you go for an attempt and the person you're trying to get a refresh on is fully aware, you have to stop and go for a new attempt. Once your opponent is aware that you're trying to jump in their box or make a drop down play, you no longer have the advantage, and 9 times out of 10, you'll end up getting yourself killed or in a position where you can't recover in terms of heals and materials. The third deadly sin is ego peeking. Every weapon in this meta has crazy damage output, and while you might see an opportunity to spray at someone, in a stacked lobby, you have to be aware of other teams and cut off line of sight. Getting headshot sniped or taking a crazy amount of damage for over peeking is the fastest way to set your team up for failure. You have to be very selective with the peeks you take and be able to determine when you have the advantage. If they aren't aware of you, then obviously you have the advantage, but if it's sort of a standoff or a situation when there's several teams involved, the first one to over peek is getting punished the hardest. The fourth deadly sin is making delayed rotates. If you watch pros, you'll notice that they're never the last team to make a rotate. Late game rotates are time sensitive and you need to be very conscious of this. Backside zone is where all the scuff teams and scuff solos are. You need to rotate while other people are moving. In good lobbies, people aren't too worried about shooting other kids on their rotate. They understand that position is more valuable than damage on a random player. Being the last team to rotate puts you at the center of attention, and teams on front side and height team have nothing else to look at but you coming from backside zone. Every single player that's sitting on backside is praying for a refresh. If you and your duo are stacked on mats and heals and decide to rotate too late, there's going to be a shambles duo that jumps in and wipes both of you. Those late game placement points you're going to miss out on are the difference between qualling and not qualling. The fifth deadly sin is dragging out your mid game fights. You and your duo both need to be good at getting kills as fast as possible. The longer a fight lasts, the more resources you lose, the more opportunities you miss out on, and the higher chance of a stalemate that leaves both teams disengaged and scuffed on resources. You have to apply pressure to put whoever you're fighting in a defensive position. There shouldn't be a back and forth, it should be you and your duo on the aggressive side the entire time. This is something that I'm definitely still working on. My pressuring isn't as intense as I want it to be, and because of that, my ability to end fights quickly isn't the best. To practice this, every single fight I take, whether it's creative or just solo ranked, my goal is to overwhelm my opponent and get the kill. Smacking on different walls, constantly spraying, and cutting off their heals, keeping that hyper aggressive, almost suffocating environment while I'm fighting. Speed and efficiency is key when it comes to mid game. You can't be afraid to jump in. Only playing for trades simply isn't enough. Skilled mid-game fighting in solos and duos is what's going to bring you to that next level in your competitive career. And the sixth deadly sin is tunnel vision. There's situations where a fight could be going in your favor, but you completely ignore your circumstances. If you have heals in your inventory, use them. Especially in competitive where it really matters, there's no worse feeling than dying to a kid when you had heals in your inventory. You have to be aware of everything, even when there's only one target. There's so many external factors that could completely ruin your game, and that lack of awareness will cost you in tournaments. The most common situation is you end up chasing a kid, and you put yourself in a position to get 50-50'd with none of your guns reloaded. And because you went blind to your circumstances, now you just died to a horrible kid with an auto shotgun. You have to be mindful and stop yourself from losing track of everything going on around you. Keep that high pressure on your opponent, but don't lose sight of the environment. The seventh deadly sin is the lack of goals. Everything you do should have a goal or help you improve in some way. The players that stay horrible at competitive are the ones who sit around and only play for fun. They aren't diving deep into themselves as a player to find those flaws and work them out. Whether it's aim, mechanics, or something more specific, like me, personally, my solo fighting, there needs to be structure and goals aligned with how you play. This is one of the most difficult games to go pro in. Everything you do day to day is going to reflect in your abilities. If you're not setting goals for yourself and holding yourself to a high standard, you're just not going to get to where you want to be. Each time you touch the game, you should be looking to improve. Pros didn't just wake up one day and go pro. It took consistency and patience. Set small goals, and once they start to add up, you'll begin seeing that improvement you're looking for. Focus on getting good at specific things individually to build yourself up as a player. It takes two good solos to make a good duo. Chemistry will never beat raw skill. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a sub, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.